we're still at the same site. Rice Field Day is the 26th of August. You're all invited. Hope you can make it. First crop of rice was produced commercially successful in 1908 up in Butte County. It was a Japanese introduction. The work was the work of the Bureau of Soil Survey, which was the USDA at that time. The founding varieties were Calusa and Caloro. These were plant introductions. They were brought from overseas, Japan and China originally. And they are all that we produced basically until the 1950s. In the 1950s, the first plant breeding where they actually made crosses and developed a successful variety was the development of Calrose, and that's our founding medium grain. By the 1970s, it was grown on about 70% of our acreage. It was successful because it was well adapted, had good yield potential, grain quality, and was marketed well. Today, Calrose is a trade name. We don't grow Calrose anymore, but they're recognized as California medium grain. So, U.S. major market classes or varieties. We have medium and short grains. They're distinct in their cooking and shape characteristics and got to meet general criteria. For the physical-chemical characteristics, the amylose content, this is the straight-train glucose, affects the cooking quality the most. Simply put, more amylose, drier cooking, like a long grain, less amylose, medium and short grain, more sticky cooking. A lot of varieties, we don't really know what really makes them special. We've got to cook them, and that's true for Calrose, and that's true for short grains and what we call premium short grains, and then also specialty varieties I'll talk about in a minute. So there are your long, medium, and short. You can see the length-width ratios, amylose content. You see the amylose gets higher in the long grains, and then some of the other chemical tests we use. So the variety naming system for our varieties from the Rice Experiment Station, which are probably 90% or better of the rice we grow in California. The first letter indicates the grain type, and it would be medium grain. The first number indicates the maturity. 100s would be very early varieties. And the next two numbers are the release number. So M105 is a medium grain. It's very early, and it's the 5th release. Now we have other prefixes, I guess I'll call them. There, Caligari would be short grain, L would be for long grain, etc. Remember this will be on the test. Okay, our varieties are protected in California at kind of two levels. We have protection under the Plant Variety Protection Act, and varieties have been protected at the station since 1988. Export of seed from California is prohibited. And then in about 2000, we started protecting varieties with utility patents. And the utility patents restrict use for breeding. It also gives us more control there as well. The California Cooperative Rice Research Foundation, that's who owns the Rice Experiment Station, does not charge royalties or fees for these varieties. Okay, so what's kind of our choice of varieties here? Okay, in medium grains, we have what I'll call the Calrose series M104 to M209. We have our premium medium grains, 401 and 402. Short grain, S102. These are the premium Japanese types. Many people do grow Koshikari, which is not our variety, but actually produce basic seed, L206. And then these are specialty varieties here, and I'll run through these a little bit for you. All the data that we collect for the rice experiments and feeds to the decision to release varieties are done in cooperation with the UC, the cooperative extension people that you have here. Their information is available. I think I got this right, Louise, from their website. This is an example of the information here. This is a 4-location average from yield tests in a very early group, and you can see how they collect data. They measure the yield on replicated plots. They take seedling vigor scores. Ray's in the back was doing that, lodging and height as well. One of the very useful parts, and there's a lot of credit here, is that the coefficients of variability are very low. And the significant difference is said here, 340-pound difference between these lines indicates they're statistically significant. That's very helpful for plant breeding because that means you look at a yield and you know it really yields more. For example, the cow mochi, the new experimental here yields much more significantly than cow mochi, and that makes our selection process efficient. So here's the cow row series. Okay, so you have basically a range from M104, which would be a very early, down to M209 in the standard cow rows. 104, you have to be careful with that. That's easy to become dyslexic with this naming system. Not very glamorous. Early maturing, very blanking resistant. This is grown in the cold San Joaquin area or good for late planting in cold areas. M105 is a new release. It's earlier than M206, but not as early in cold tolerance as M104. Excellent milling yields. M202 was our big workhorse. It does lodge, it's performed well. Seed production is ending this year, so you're not going to see this around in a couple years. The two most popular varieties would be M205 and M206. 205 in colder areas, the warm areas, very popular. It can be susceptible to blanking, and that's why it's not grown. It's a little later maturing, has good milling potential, and very resistant to lodging. 206 is probably the most popular variety, good yield potential. It does lodge, but it gives you a broader area where it can grow the variety, and mostly widely planted, and excellent milling yields as well. M28, if you're in a place where you have blast as a problem, it's a blast-resistant variety, and probably slightly lower yield potential, and you want to look at that if that's one of your concerns. And the newest release here, and I'll just run through this to give you a reference, is M209. It just was released to seed this year, so it will be a couple years before you see it in the market. So I mentioned the milling test. You saw some of these before on Cass's slide. These are milling studies we do at the station. Basically, you can see as the harvest moisture falls, the milling yield drops off. That's the head rice over here. So you can see M104 doesn't mill as well, and it falls off rapidly. M206, very popular. High milling yield potential and pretty stable in the M105. Same thing. Okay, just a little data on the new variety, just to kind of show you the reference, the kind of information we get. And again, you could see this if you go to the UC website. This is the new experimental now, M209. You can see the average over 5 years of testing. There's the days to heading compared to the other varieties, and there's a summary again down here. So basically you see a little later than 202, not as early as 206, better resistance to lodging. Again, here's some yield numbers. Again, this is from the statewide testing program, which is funded by the Rice Research Board. That may be on the test. You can see the yield advantages in these tests over there as well for the different varieties. And you can actually go on the site and you can look at your closer location if you feel that helps you make decisions about varieties. Just a little different way to look at yield. There's some graphs here, and this is kind of a yield index. Basically, these are the yields from the different experiments, and they calculate a yield index. And the easiest way to think about this is as the yield levels goes up, difference between the variety performances spread out. So here at real low yield levels, there's not a lot of difference. But if you have a high yielding situation and are a good grower, you can see that in this case, maybe M209 would be a good choice. So M209, developed by Dr. Ndaya, yield advantages over some of the other varieties. Probably would grown for 205 and 202 are mostly grown. Heading in between there, it has a slightly larger kernel, less lodging than 206. The milling yields we're going to see, but they may not be quite as good as you see in the 206 and the 105. And it was tested extensively by UC for 5 years. Premium medium grains. Okay, premium medium grains. These are varieties, at least the ones we have now, are all late maturing. They have a improved cooking quality similar to the Japanese premium types. Very smooth and shiny, very soft texture in your mouth, usually low protein. Two variety choice, M401 is the old, you can see the age of the rice, very old standard here. It's very late maturing, 400 series, has a very large kernel, can get into blanking situations, lodging as well, but sometimes the yields can be quite good. M402 is earlier maturing, the kernels are smaller, but it has much better milling yields. It's limited use, and some of the marketers will prefer the 104. Just a little picture kind of to give you an illustration. So this would be the category of the proprietary variety cocoa roasts to, and actually these are all related. So here you can see the medium grain kernels, 401 being bigger, and here you can kind of see the shiny cooking characteristics of the 401 types. Short grains, a couple kinds of short grains. We have our standard short grain, very early maturing, has a good yield potential, very large kernel, probably the largest kernel around. Milling yields can be down because it has a rough hull or it's pubescent as well. It makes it a little more difficult to handle, but also makes it dry down fast. Our standard short grain there. The next series would be the premium short grains, this group here. Koshikari is the mother of all high quality rice coming from Japan. Very high quality, very good milling, extreme lodging, very low yields. So if you're going to grow that, they better pay you. It's a Japanese introduction, and it's kind of late maturing. Kalikari, 201 and 202 are basically our semi-dwarf versions, with the Koshikari as the parentage. 202's only been out a couple years. It has a little better yield potential, better cooking quality in our evaluations, but these ones are not choices in cold areas where you're worried about blanking. And you should not expect the same kind of yields as you would on your cow roast varieties. The waxy or glutinous varieties are known as cow mochis. Mochi is a Japanese name for the confection that they make as well. Cow mochi 101 has been around for a long time. It's kind of a standard. It has rough hulls, lower yields. It's very cold tolerant. If you plant as far as flanking, but not as high yield potential. And you'll hear the term sweet or glutinous rice as well. So that's the mochi series. This year we just released a cow mochi 203. It has longer grain filling periods, so we put it in the 200 series. We don't have any experience in the market, but it has very high yield potential. Here's a summary. You won't see this often. It was tested by the UC again. It had a 27% yield advantage over cow mochi on average. So that's unusual. So we'll see how that works out as far as the market. A little later, and developed by Dr. Savante there at the Rice Experiment Station. Long grains, L206 is the only long grain in California we have in production. I will add that it beat all the long grains in the South. So I hope somebody in California will grow it and sell it, but don't grow many acres. It's a little less vigorous. You wouldn't want to put it in a cold situation, but its yields are quite good, very competitive with the medium grains. Then we have two specialty long grains, a basmati rice. These are aromatic rice that has the popcorn aroma and cooks very dry and flaky, and the kernels elongate when you cook them. And then the newest release is A202. Kalmati 202 has a low yield potential. It does have a rough hull, and it's low milling because of the very narrow kernel. You want to have a marketer, and it would be something you want to make sure stays in the warm area. A202 is the new release. It's a standard aromatic, so it has aroma, but cooks like a conventional long grain. Much better yield potential, more like our regular medium grades as well. So here's a little bit on A202 again. Some of these specialty improvements, there are significant yield advantages and milling advantages. We'll see how the marketplace likes it, developed by Dr. Giordari, project leader there. Okay, it's quiz time. Okay, M206 is an early maturing cow roast legacy medium grain rice. It's the 6th release. It's It's the name of the form at your FSA office. It's a very early maturing cow rose, and it's the 6th release. It's the name of the droid on the new Star Wars movie. It's a late maturing premium quality. Okay, make your response. Bruce said I should look through. Okay, 50 is the magic number. He said, okay, so I advance this, and yes, it's an early maturing cow rose, medium grain, and it's 6th release. Okay, it's getting closer to being finished. Statewide yield tests are Department of Education tests for elementary school children. They are tests of experimental lines and varieties conducted at the rice experiment station. They are tests of experimental lines and rice berries conducted at the rice experiment station and in growers' fields. They are tests at the rice experiment station, etc., done by the UC. They are tests done by the UCE and funded by the California Rice Research. Some of them are true, but some of them are more true. Okay. E. All of the above, so to speak. Okay, except the elementary school test. Okay, last one. RES varieties, that's rice experiment varieties, are discussed today are public varieties that have no restriction on their use, export, or sale. They are the property of the California Cooperative Rice Research Foundation, have no restrictions. They're properties of the University of California and have no restrictions. They're property of the University of California and have restrictions, and you pay no royalties, or you pay royalties. They're property of the California Cooperative Rice Research Foundation, and they have restrictions on their use, but you pay no royalties. Or they're the rice experiment stations, and you pay royalties. Okay, lots of stuff there. Some are true, and some are more true. Okay, it is E. Right? No royalties. But don't send the seed somewhere else. That's what I've got.